As programmers, many of you are probably familiar with HTML and cascading style sheets. CSS, as you know, allows you to style the elements within a web page. Now, in Android, we also have a concept of styling the on-screen elements. It's not quite the same as in CSS. It's actually marked up with XML, as I'm about to show you, but it's a nice way of defining a bunch of common aspects of a particular element on the screen. So for example, if I go ahead and click one of these address book contacts, you can see here that all of the text labels in the left-hand column here have the same font size, they're all right justified. And then on the right side here, you can see that all of these text labels again are same font and same size, they're all left justified, and they all have this border around the outside edge. Now, when you have lots of elements on the screen that have the exact same settings, rather than defining those repeatedly in the XML layout file, you can define them once in a style and then apply that style to the different elements, which is what we'll show you when we look at the layout files a little bit later. But first, let's go ahead and take a look at the XML that defines styles. Now, as you can see here in my address book project, in the res values folder, I have a styles.xml file. Now, the way I created that is I went to the File menu, I selected New, and then Other. And under the Android category, there's actually two ways now that you can create that file. Previously, in earlier lessons, I showed you selecting Android XML file. At this time, I've now installed the most up-to-date Android development tools for Eclipse, and as part of that, they've added in a couple of new options. One is for creating an Android XML layout file, and one is for creating an Android XML values file. So if you were to select values file, you would be able to create this styles.xml file, or as I'm going to do here just to show you, if you select Android XML file and click Next, then you can go into the resource type and make sure that values is selected. You may recall from earlier lessons, the resource type used to be specified by selecting one of a bunch of radio buttons. Now you just select from a drop-down list. And as before, you have to specify the name of the file, and the root element when you're talking about a values file is always resources in that case. And as you'll see in a moment, our styles file contains a resources element with a couple of style elements underneath. So if I wanted to create this file right now, I would click Finish and it would place that file into my values folder. And of course, if I did that right at this moment, I would get a message from the IDE telling me there's already a file by that name. So let me go ahead and cancel that and open our styles.xml file. Now, this is the new XML editor that's part of the latest tools for Android development in Eclipse. And in this XML editor, if you wanted to add a new style to the resources node, you would right-click the node, select Add Child and Style, and it would create a new style element. And separately, as you'll see, within each style are a bunch of items. And if I wanted to add a new item to represent some attribute of the style, I would right-click the style, Add Child, and select Item. And of course, if you're just familiar and handy with XML, you can always just go to the source view and check out the source code for the XML file, and of course you can edit this directly here. So what we're looking at on the screen is a resources file that describes two different styles, one at lines 3 through 12, which is named Contact Label Text View, and one at lines 13 through 20, which is named Contact Text View. And these two styles are being applied to the label and the display of the data, respectively, in the View Contact screen of our app. So within each style, you must specify the attribute name so that you give a name to the style, and that allows you to apply that style to elements in a layout XML file. And then each of these items has a name, which is the particular Android attribute that you want to set, and then the value is what you specify inside the starting and ending item tags. So for contact label text views, we're saying that the layout width should be wrap content, and the layout height should be wrap content. The gravity should be right, which is what's allowing them to be right justified in their space. The text size in this case is 14 SP, and again use SP for all fonts because the user can choose to set a larger default font on their device now as of Android 4.0, and this will allow your font to scale properly based on the user's font settings. We also have a text color. In this case we're using the predefined Android color called white. We have a margin on the left side for the layout of 5 dp and margin right as well of 5 dp, and a margin top to separate each of these from the preceding one on the screen, also of 5 dp. For the contact text views, similarly, we've specified the layout width and height both as wrap content. We've made the text size for these 16 SP, so a little bit bigger text size for those. The color is again white. The margin around the text inside of each of these labels is 5 dp, which is what's allowing us to get this spacing around the text in each of the right-hand column labels. And then finally, we've specified a custom background for each of the contact text view elements. The Android background is set to the drawable called textview_border, which we're going to be looking at in the next video. So now that we have these styles, we can actually apply them to various elements in a layout, and we'll take a look at how we do that when we see the layout for the view contact activity in a subsequent video.